Hi, and welcome to this podcast. I'm Steve Kofsky, editorial director, and I'm very pleased to be sitting down with Shishir Singh, who is our new CTO for the cyber division. And Shishir, would you talk a little bit about yourself? You're relatively new to BlackBerry, and why are you here? What convinced you that this was the right place to be, and what is your role?
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. And when I looked at BlackBerry, Steve, honestly speaking, I knew that Silence was the company they acquired long time back, but that was back in my, memory 2 years back. And when I started talking, I realized that the richness of the portfolio was so good, and I thought that this can really come together to solve really good customer use cases and the problems which currently the cybersecurity industry is facing. And BlackBerry could be a player where it can come and bring all the portfolio together to solve some of the complex problems what we see currently in the industry.
I was hoping today we could talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on around the planet. You come to BlackBerry at an interesting time. We're on the heels of a global pandemic. We now have a major military conflict that has very high potential of impacting the security of organizations, both in the region, that's already occurred, but really throughout the world. And in my 20 plus years of covering technology as a journalist and now sort of as an embedded content editor, I've never seen a period where cyber warfare was considered such a clear and present danger to so many organizations in the public and private sector. And I wonder if we could talk about what you see as some of the key implications for BlackBerry cybersecurity customers and for organizations at large.
Yeah, no, Steve, I think it's very unfortunate what we are seeing in today's geopolitical situation. I hope everybody's staying safe in this current environment. And if you look at in the broader way, the cybersecurity is definitely one of the ways countries and the companies and the enterprises are going after each other, because this is one of the ways they can get into the digital infrastructure very easily. Now, it's really important that most of the companies who are there, and the pandemic has proved the world is very small. Everybody's connected to everyone. Everybody has got the connecting tissues across the board. Supply chain was another big example where the shortcomings of that impacted almost everybody's life here. So, looking at that and given the cloud transformation, what we saw in the last couple of years, that has given a humongous opportunity for the bad guys to come into this anybody's infrastructure. They can exploit any vulnerabilities and get to the digital infrastructure very, very easily. So I would say that it's really important for large enterprise as well as for the small enterprise to be aware of their digital asset, where it is and how to protect that. Also, it is important that we protect our people, because people and the asset, the users, the applications are everywhere, and people are connecting from any places, any locations to get their users access their applications, and that's actually creating a lot of holes where the hackers get to you pretty easily.
Now, one of the reasons I wanted to speak with you is BlackBerry published a blog just last week that was based on one of an interview with you, talking about what small to medium businesses should be concerned about right now. And I think that in many cases, SMBs don't realize that they could potentially be targeted by a nation state. They don't expect that. They're not as prepared for it as a large organization, and they're vulnerable. The other thing is that they're often connected to large organizations. They may be part of the supply chain of a large organization, perhaps in the critical infrastructure of a company, and that is a weak link and a potential vector by which an actor could target and really try to have impact at even a societal level. Could you talk about the challenge for SMBs and some of the best practices that they could be using right now to protect themselves?
No, that's a great question, Steve, especially for the SMB and smaller organization where they're trying to deal with resource issues, right? Because they have a really important asset or important business to deal with, and they don't have enough resources from the cybersecurity point of view where they can go and do incident response, or they can do a tech health check of their environment or infrastructure to see, make sure their patches are up to date. They know exactly what the vulnerabilities are out there in the field. And what makes it more difficult for these SMB is that they don't have any SOC environment, because they don't understand all the alerts which is coming from all the infrastructure, all the control points they have. And it is important for them to depend on companies like cybersecurity companies where they can go and ask for help. I would say that there are a few things they should be really taking care of. One is that regularly making sure that they have got the current patches applied in their environment. I would also say that there are some weaker links where you put your old machines with the old software, which is not completely up to date, and that becomes a weaker link for the hackers to get into your environment. So continuously monitoring, making sure that you get some help from the cybersecurity vendor to do the assessment on a regular basis. And there are a few common things you can adopt. For example, authentication and authorization is always used interchangeably. So make sure that your authentication is proper. You've got the multi-factor authentication, but also you are taking care of the authorization part where the user is actually authorized to access application based on their roles and responsibilities. The third thing I would say is that some of the control points, whether it's on your endpoint device or in the network or in the cloud, there is a very common thing that the configuration drift happens. And whenever you are developing a new software trying to host in the cloud, you have to make sure that the configuration drift and all of that is taken care of. You are continuously monitoring some of those things to make sure that the vulnerabilities are not exploited by the hackers.
Okay. And encryption is another thing that you mentioned,
Yep.
encrypting
Yep.
all of your assets. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Steve. I think it's really important to do encryption of your important assets, not from the compliance reason, but also just from the safety reason. Some of the encryptions, and we have got very modern encryption algorithms, and where your data is at rest or motion or in the transit, make sure that it is all encrypted in a way that the hackers have less access to some of those assets which they are looking after.
Okay, I think this is very helpful, Shishir. Any kind of final words of advice to companies that are perhaps fearful that they could become a target or even collateral damage in this conflict?
Yeah, one of the things, Steve, I would say is that the zero trust network access. Zero trust network access is a proactive way of making sure that your infrastructure is designed in a way where it is less dangerous for the hackers who are out there who are trying to look for the weaker links and all. And zero trust network access has got multiple parts of it, right? One is when your control points, whether it's endpoint, managed or unmanaged devices, or your control points like firewalls or IPS and all of that is trying to connect into the cloud, making sure that those access is completely secure, and also it is accessing the asset which is actually authorized by the IT admins, and it has the right security postures and policy engines and all of that. And the last mile, I would say, is your SaaS applications or sanctioned applications or long tail SaaS applications, or whether you are developing a new software into the IS and PaaS environment. All of that is going through this zero trust network access, which has the right micro segmentations, app segmentations, geo segmentations, and all of that. So it's really important for even the SMBs to make sure that they have got the right network or zero trust network infrastructure in place, and they have got the right control points to manage all of these things.
Okay, I think that's a fantastic checklist and a place for people to start. We'll, of course, provide more resources. But Shishir, I want to thank you so much for joining us and in discussing this topic with us.
Thank you so much, Steve, for having me. Appreciate it.